The Irish government and political establishment's chaotic immigration strategy is failing ordinary working class people. We've seen over the last year well over 100,000 people in state-supported accommodation, and I've spoken about in many videos about the ones who are profiting from this as well. Genuine concerns such as lack of services, lack of facilities, infrastructure and no integration have been ignored, have been dismissed, and people have been smeared and cancelled because of their genuine concerns in relation to these issues. It's vitally important to note who's benefiting from this. As I said, the 1% of the government and political establishment represent, such as the big company behind me, Travelodge Group, which last year earns more than €86 million out of the public purse supplying accommodation for asylum seekers and refugees. This is a New York-based hedge fund called Golden Tree Asset Management that works on hoovering up distressed loans based on Wall Street, making huge profits from the misery of others from Irish society. But again, it's used from the public purse, used from public wealth, and as I said, they're making huge profits from the disaster that's impacting people on a daily basis. And again, who's going to be picking up the tab and paying for it? It's ordinary people. And the government's latest plans are just nonsensical. They're speaking in the last 24 hours about adding a couple of countries to a safe countries or a safe list, which is making it into a technical issue when it's not actually a technical issue at all. It's more of a question of democracy and more of a question of sovereignty, because Article 6 of the Irish Constitution states that the policy of the state should derive in final arbitration from the people of the state. And in consideration to all the polls that have been pushed by through in the last year and the demonstrations, over 200 demonstrations up and down the country for people with genuine concerns, they have been largely ignored. So where's community sovereignty? Where's town sovereignty? Where's Irish sovereignty? It doesn't really exist in the more centralised power that we see in these top-down decisions that are made without proper public consultation. And it's vitally important the government, as I said, is more interested in building purpose-built accommodation centres that they're not going to announce until after the local elections this year. Up to 6 are going to be built around Ireland. Again, it's going to make huge profits for the 1% that I've spoken about many times here in Ireland and internationally also as well. And it's interesting because why are they creating the migration chaos? It is impacting ordinary people and it's benefiting the rich. It's benefiting the huge bosses who are trying to make huge profits and to keep wages down. In 2019, the central bank reported we need more migrants to keep wages down. Now, this is part of the policy of the Irish state to keep the profits high for the bosses in society. The very powerful interests who are pushing this are big entities like IBEC, the Irish Business and Employers Confederation. Now, it's interesting to know the history of the Irish Business and Employers Confederation. They came from a merger of two groups, the Federation of Irish Employers and another group, Federation of Irish Industry. Now, if you look at the history in Ireland, the Federation of Irish Employers was founded by William Martin Murphy in 1913. Isn't that interesting? William Martin Murphy, and remember the struggle through the lockout, remember the horrific treatment workers were treated during that period of time that I've spoken about on many occasions. William Martin Murphy, who was a huge capitalist, lived up in Dartry and was known as the vulture of Dartry Hall. Now, he founded this. And the Irish Business and Employers Confederation of today, their president is Frank Gleeson. He's president of Aramark Europe. And who benefits from any of these migration policies? Aramark. Aramark have contracts for many direct provision centres. They also have contracts for prison systems in the United States as well, where they serve substandard food and make huge profits. So Frank Gleeson is the president currently. They also have other people on the board, such as Paul Duffy from Pfizer. They have Anne O'Leary, the head of Meta. They also have Dalton Phillips from Greencore, ex-Dublin Airport Aviation Authority. And also they have Danny McCoy, who's the chief executive. And what have they been saying? They've been saying we need to keep wages down. Ireland is a low-wage economy. 1 in 5 workers in Ireland are deemed in low pay and low wage. We can see that when more and more people are struggling to keep food on the table, struggling to pay a rent, and then so many people are working 2 or 3 jobs in very casualised labour with lack of rights for workers. And recently in Ireland, the minimum wage has been increased from a minuscule €11.30 up to €12.70 from the 1st of January. That is if you're over a certain age, which is particularly ageist if you're a younger person, where you're not on a higher wage, again, which is absolutely goes nowhere near meeting your basic cost of living in terms of the consequences of government's manufactured housing disaster, which is one behind me here. You can see me. That's a co-living development, again owned by an international hedge fund. It's where €1,850 a month for a car parking space, 15 square metres, 1,850 a month. So €12.70 would nowhere near cover that. But IBEC's response is to keep wages repressed and keep wages down. And they've been demanding that wages now, the government should do a pause on any more increases to the minimum wage, drive more into poverty, drive more people into misery. And why do they want this? This is part of the strategy used by the migration chaos to import cheaper labour. This is fact, and this is what the big capitalists in Irish society want to achieve. You want to keep wages down. They're profiting twofold, profiting from the migration industry and asylum seeker industry, and they're profiting from cheaper wages, exploiting more workers. And I know through a lot of work I've done now, even with the Dublin Renters Union, how many migrants come into Ireland that are in low pay, overcrowded conditions. So when the Irish government talk about humanitarian, and we have to be cognizant of people's human needs, they're not humanitarian, because if they were, there would be no homeless disaster in Ireland. There wouldn't be 1 million people on hospital waiting lists. There wouldn't be hundreds of people on hospital trolleys up and down the country today. There wouldn't be people dying in the streets of Dublin or anywhere around the country. They're not humanitarian. They're using it cynically for their big bosses. And it's interesting when you note that these comments coming from people like Danny McCoy, who are pushing this to talk about wage freezes, they won't talk about the crux of the issue. They won't talk about the profiteering that goes on. In Irish society, the top 2 billionaires have the same wealth as 50% of the population. Consider that. Top 2 billionaires in Ireland have the same wealth as 50% of the population. I've spoken about previously where Oxfam had a report to say with a proper proportionate wealth tax, that would yield at least €9.2 billion. That could be redistributed, making conditions so much better for people in society. But no, this isn't what the political establishment wants. They're more interested in keeping wages down and profiting their friends and their international vulture friends. Rather than dealing with the crux of the issue, rather than talking about the honest analysis and the truth behind the war in Ukraine, where we're paying sky-high energy bills, speak about the truth. Speak about the Nord Stream. They don't speak about the Nord Stream. This is the political establishment in Ireland who hide all these facts from people. They don't talk about the European Central Bank and the magic money tree that was printed during COVID. They don't talk about COVID lockdowns, which provided the biggest cover in wealth in history towards the billionaires that made the poor poorer. This isn't the truth. They don't speak the truth because they make it into, compartmentalise these issues, make them into separate issues rather than dealing with systemic general issues. And even over 100 years ago, James Connolly spoke on the Dublin Trades Council about labour coming in from other countries. He spoke about possible scab workers taking the places of Irish workers during the lockout, for instance. And also spoke about Belgian workers coming out, rather than standing up in their own countries, essentially, for their rights and the betterment of the conditions as the working class. They didn't. And it essentially competes with the Irish workers as well. So it's vitally important to remember this in the context of what's going on, in the context of who's benefiting, and put these arguments together when you're speaking to people and speak out about what's really happening in society, because we're all being taken for absolute mugs by the Irish political establishment. We need to speak out about it. We need to speak out about it honestly, frankly, and give the true facts on the ground. They're benefiting both ends. They're benefiting from the migration chaos. They're not struggling because of lack of access to resources of rich in society. They have access to all the resources they want, in terms of private healthcare, in terms of housing as well. They don't have the struggles that ordinary people have the struggles of. Whether you're working in low pay, whether you're working and struggling to pay a mortgage, or whether you're elderly, or whether you're young, it's all of our struggles together against the political establishment who represent the 1% and won't give an honest analysis of what's really going on today in Irish society and who's going to benefit. When you put all these arguments together, it's very easy to see who the finger of blame should be pointed at and how we should be uniting for ordinary people here in Ireland, for Irish sovereignty, for Irish independence, for Irish democracy, where people have a right say and we look after the needs of the people here in Ireland, and make sure they're met, and tackle the ones who are making the huge profits and creating carnage and chaos in Irish society today. So take care. If you enjoy my work, please press like to my Facebook page, YouTube channel, subscribe, TikTok, X also as well. And thanks to everybody who supports me through buying me a coffee. I'm very grateful. So from Rathmines today, take care. Talk to you all soon. Bye. Thanks for your support. Bye bye.